Last October, Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism joined the United Friends and Family Campaign, UFFC, for their annual march from Trafalgar Square to Downing Street in London, which was organized in protest against police violence, brutality and deaths in police custody in Britain. FRFI has supported that march since its beginning 13 years ago, and FRFI has supported the Justice for Granger campaign from its beginning. That march remembered people killed by the state over the last decade, such as John Charles de Menezes, who was gunned down by police inside London Underground in 2005. Sean Rigg, who died in police custody in 2008. Jimmy Mubenga, who was murdered by J4G security guards during attempts to deport him to Angola in 2010. And the family of Mark Duggan, whose death sparked the uprisings across England in August last year. On the occasion of the UFFC demo, the police reacted aggressively, kettling and pushing back the protesters. It was another unprovoked display of further violence towards people who dared to oppose state repression. Since the year 2000, at least 33 people have been shot dead by British police, and about 419 have died in police custody. Yet, as many people have said, not one police officer has been convicted for these deaths. Compare the speed of the response to the uprisings last August to the extremely slow investigation into how Mark Duggan was killed. The police killing of Mark Duggan in Tottenham on the 6th of August was swiftly followed by inner city riots across many other London boroughs and throughout England on the 7th to the 9th of August. The ruling class quickly made it clear that they would exact revenge on any working class youth involved. By October, more than 5,000 people were arrested nationally. Police routinely opposed bail or cautions, and more than 60% of detainees were held in custody, even on trivial charges. Courts sat overnight, and they were instructed to deal out harsh punishments and custodial sentences. A student was even sentenced to 6 months for stealing bottles of water worth £3.60. Another man got 16 months for taking looted donuts. 2 young men were sentenced to 4 years in prison for posting on Facebook. The police even posted names, addresses and photos of convicted people on the internet. The people who have been convicted of shooting at police in Birmingham, and they got 30-year sentences, while the killers of Stephen Lawrence got 14 years or less, with 3 of them still walking free. So you can see the difference. No matter how much the ruling class and the media continue to depict the uprisings which followed Mark Duggan's death as incoherent, and those who took part as mindless, ill-informed, greedy criminals, the point is they were rising up and fighting back against a system in which racism remains prevalent, and the gap between the rich and poor continues to widen, services are being destroyed, and the police are increasingly overt in their brutality. We must continue to oppose any attempts to marginalize and criminalize this resistance. Have the police killers of Mark Duggan or Azelle Rodney or Anthony Granger been brought before a court in the middle of the night or remanded in custody? Of course not. But these riots were not one-offs. The ruling class has declared war on the living standards and the lives of working class and poor people, and this will be intensified. David Cameron and his fellow corrupt MPs blame working class people for poverty and for the miserable benefits we have to fight for, and they have promised more repression to come. Measures like dispersal orders, curfew powers, police powers to remove face coverings from protesters, powers to confiscate offenders' property, and over the coming months and years we are going to see more. All these measures are already law. They have already been introduced by the last Labour government, who understood that increasing social inequality that they caused would lead to simmering discontent that could explode at any time. And so they systematically tooled up the state with every conceivable repressive measure in preparation. The last Labour government introduced a staggering 4,200 new criminal offences. That's 4,200 new reasons for the police to stop and search you and even to shoot you. And they introduced punitive new sentencing structures, such as the indeterminate sentencing, and a whole secondary apparatus to police the alienated working class under the name of fighting antisocial behaviour or fighting terrorism. And these wide-ranging powers and paramilitary policing techniques have been used predominantly as a form of harassment against the Muslim community, but potentially against anyone the British state perceives as an enemy within. These powers Britain has practiced for decades on colonized people in Ireland, Iraq, Kenya and Afghanistan. So in conclusion, as the crisis of the capitalist system deepens, and as the ruling class tries to make the poor and the working class pay for the crisis, and as the cuts in public services deepen, there will be more police repression, more police murders, more deaths in custody, and more stop and search, and more punishment to come. And we have to build resistance and self-defense. But repression will not solve the problem for the ruling class. Further resistance, rise and uprisings are inevitable. The British ruling class have a record of acting with impunity until it is resisted by the people. It is now vital that activists and socialists and communists become involved in support for those who are being tried and imprisoned, and that the tasks of informing people about their legal rights and defending communities under attack are prioritized. That police harassment must be monitored and challenged, and that a strong working class self-defense movement is built to resist the onslaught that is to come. Bring the killers of Anthony Granger to justice. No justice, no peace.